performers and combatants of sand and blood, gladiators are both showmen and exemplar for the spirit of Ul'dah. Strong and imposing men and women all, though eclectic and varied, the one thing that unites them is living by the sword. Fighting bouts of combat against man or beast in the coliseum, a gladiator seeks to rise to the highest echelon of Ul'dah society by garnering fame and fortune through their victories. Winning alone is not enough though, and one must command the Bloodsands as they would a stage to entice and awe the many spectators. Through these skills does a gladiator command their foe, becoming the center point of all aggression and notice. What better symbol for the jewel of the desert than those who would fight their way to riches, forging their place in the world, an egalitarian ideal, even if the reality is less seemly. Standing for near 5 centuries, the Coliseum of Ul'dah and its Bloodsands have stood as a center of skill and entertainment, drawing blades from Eorzean over, and even as far afield as Hingashi. In the Coliseum, crowds are stirred and moved by the bloodsport of combat, ranging from single combat between gladiators to bouts pitting ill-equipped prisoners against terrifying beasts from all across Hydaelyn. Illegal gambling on the outcome of matches is a favorite Ul'dah pastime, and so with the practice, attempts at rigging or swaying outcomes. The Coliseum's history begins before its inception, in the years following the fall of the city-state of Belladia, and the rise of Ul'dah from its ashes. With Sasagan ul-Sisigan, first of his name and first Sultan of Ul'dah, inviting swordsmen from across the land to compete in tournaments against his own elite soldiers, known as the Paladins, in a bid to further the art of combat in the newly minted Ul'dah. Drawing all manner of soul and blade, over time this gave rise to a national culture of combat, leading to the Coliseum and gladiators. Though it has been many years since Sasagan's Ul Cup tourney has been held, the people still sing tales of its bouts and desire for its return. When the Coliseum came to be 500 years ago, only captured enemies and criminals were made to fight on its Bloodsands. Between the legacy of sporting combat and the ravenous hunger from the populace for spectacle, it was not long before free men and women joined the fray, seeking glory and wealth. As people gather, so do institutions come to be, and so an organization of combatants arose based on a spirit of mutually shared prosperity. This group provided aid and security for those wounded on the Bloodsands, as well as organizing replacements should a fighter be unable to compete, even going so far as to provide stipends for those who retire. In short order did this group open its door to the public, and so was the Gladiators Guild born. Of the gladiators themselves, during the time of Belladia, the sword was deemed the exclusive arm of her knights, the general populace restricted from their ownership and use. As Belladia was torn apart by civil war, however, the resulting city-states of Ul'dah and Sildee both allowed the use of the sword to all and sundry. Needing men and women at arms, they hired mercenaries, especially those of Highlander and Hellsguard blood. As more of the population came to wield blades, displays of skill and prowess became a common sight. From this peasantry rose the art of the gladiator and its grand tradition. The modern Gladiators Guild is led by Mila Swordsong, bearing the title of First Sword. She succeeded her father after he lost his life on the sands. Acting to unite the swordsmen of the guild and seeking to quell unrest that should impact Ul'dah, Mila constantly seeks fresh recruits to bring metal and blade to the Coliseum. The line between victory and defeat is drawn by the swift and trod by the dead. The modern gladiator of recent years has not wanted for skill or style. The likes of the swords of Nald and Thal with their blades forged by Geralt Blackthorn, the bronze bull and his imposing frame, and Hamir the Simple with his mighty Birkgang, all and more have story and pageantry in spades. But perhaps none is more famous than Rauban Aldine. Born in the arid lands of Girabanya, a storied fighter even at a young age, defending his home from Garlean threats and helping to topple the Mad King. But when Alamigo fell to the Empire, he fled his home, eventually finding his way to Ul'dah. Mistaken for an Imperial spy, he was imprisoned and made to fight on the Bloodsands of the Coliseum. Through his will and skill did he persevere, winning both his freedom and the title of Bull of Alamigo. After a decade of fighting, he had won 1,000 matches, and with his vast accumulated wealth, purchased the very Coliseum that had aimed to be his prison and tomb. Doing so made him one of the richest, and thus most powerful men in Ul'dah, securing him a place amongst the Syndicate. The sword is the weapon the Gladiator lives and dies by. Those who join the Gladiators Guild are presented with a sword, and though some choose to carry a shield, it is the single-handed blade that most defines them. With as many kinds of blades as there are men and women who wield them, the assortment present in the fighting pit of the Coliseum should be no surprise. Gladiator Guild doctrine mandates that to be categorized as a one-handed sword, the weapon's blade must be 20 or more ilms, and such that a Hyur adult can wield it with ease. Numerous they may be, some of the most common ones seen in the arena break down into 6 main categories. They are the Spatha, Viking sword, bastard sword, broadsword, falchion, and shamshir. Short and wide, the Spatha is a design of the past, used by Chocobo cavalry knights. Its very antiquity is what drew gladiators to it, choosing to beguile audiences with its very anachronism. The Viking sword has been for centuries wielded by the sea-wolf Rogadin on the seas and land of the Northern Empty. Long in blade, but dull on its twin edges, the Viking sword straddles the line between blade and cudgel. Combining the balance and ease of use of a single-handed sword, with the weight and reach of a two-handed blade, the bastard sword may not excel in a specific area, but its versatile nature allows for far more creative uses. With its extreme heft and wide blade, the broadsword requires extreme strength to wield effectively. What it may lack in agility, however, is made up for in its raw mass, allowing for a man to be cleaved in twain. Dagger-toothed and absent from Eorzea for many years, the falchion is light and nimble. Its curved blade and extended edge make it excellent for slashing, and its return to common use in the middle of the 6th Astral Era, an odd appearance, saw it go hand in hand with the rise of gladiatorial fighting. Lastly is the curved shamshir, a Near Eastern design that sees its widest use in the hands of the Ixal, who have gained countless numbers of these blades from goblin traders. Though these are all varied in their own right, there are tens, if not hundreds of more sword types, and this list is by no means exhaustive. Be it by their desire to stand out from other combatants, express their wealth, or even just a disregard for their own well-being. Gladiators wear armor of all kinds. Most famously is the leather harness, specifically designed for use in the Coliseum, providing sparse protection in lieu of a combination display of crowd-pleasing muscle and agility. It has spread beyond the confines of the Bloodsands, and is a common sight all throughout Ul'dah. The Coliseum may be a desert jewel of debauchery and violence, and the gladiators act both as entertainer and combatant on its field of glory. But what strikes at the heart is the sincerity with which many of these men and women follow their cause, both in living by the blade and providing those around them with some small comfort from the troubles of life. Taking sword in hand, they strike for victory, for glory, and for the cheers of the crowd. This content was brought to you by the Eorzean Archives. If you enjoyed this video, help us please the 12 by leaving a like and subscribing for new content every Thursday, and comment down below with any topic you'd like to see our archons cover in the future. For even more content, discussion, and exclusives, please check out our Discord and consider supporting us on Patreon.